Go blend some. All right, I have a great recipe for you today. It's a favorite around my house. I love it, you know, everybody loves it. Well, most everybody loves it, and in a house with kids, if you get most everybody liking it, you've done something. This is a recipe that I have friends that actually come over and request this recipe because it's really tasty. It comes across as super gourmet, and I think you'll really like it, especially if you like tomato soup. This is a tomato basil soup. It's great. So come here, I'll show you what's in it. First, we have sun-dried tomatoes. Now, I have seen people make this with canned tomatoes. I've seen people use fresh tomatoes, but these sun-dried tomatoes just taste better. They're packed with a lot of flavor. And of course, you don't worry about the shelf life on those. These are packed in olive oil. I like those better. You can get the ones that are shredded, that are in, you know, the pouch. Those work. I've used those before. The sun-dried that are packed in olive oil, to me, just tastes a lot better. So we got 2 ounces of those. We're gonna use carrots, either a half of a carrot, of a whole carrot, or a handful of baby carrots. I get the organic baby carrots and use those. A rib of celery, just 1 rib of celery. Fresh basil, I have the fresh basil here. 5, 6 leaves maybe. And then if you don't have fresh basil, you can always use the store-bought dry basil. It's fine as well. Basil plants are really cheap to buy and plant, and they flourish during the summer. So that's what we do every year, and we usually end up having to replant because they don't always come back, but it's worth the investment of $3 or $4 to have that fresh basil because it's so good. And I use it in several recipes. You'll see that later on as well. I have salt and pepper that I use to taste. And then I have the option of some grated Parmesan, Romano, whatever, kind of a harder white cheese. And then I use 1 vegetable bouillon cube. Now, this one is made by a company called Rapunzel. It's a vegetable bouillon. And you can actually use, instead of, this calls for 2 cups of water as well. If you don't want to use water, you can use vegetable stock, vegetable bouillon. But since I'm using water, I use this vegetable, vegan actually, bouillon cube. I get these at Sprouts. You can also get them at Whole Foods. Various places have lots of really cool options that you can get, but I use the vegetable bouillon cube. So here's how you put it together. It's so easy, so simple. So I start out with the sun-dried tomatoes. That is a 1/4 cup. Some people call it 2 ounces. So I use that. Then I'm going to use my rib of celery. I'm going to use my half a carrot or a handful of baby carrots. And then something that I left out because this really is optional. This is something I throw in there, and I throw it in there for the texture and for the creaminess. Now, when I put these cashews in there, this is probably also about 2.5 ounces of cashews, regular old cashews. You can use salted, unsalted, it doesn't really matter. But I like these because it makes it more like a bisque. It makes it really nice and creamy without putting any dairy in there. And it makes it seem so much more decadent with that little taste of that. Now, when it comes to our basil, I only use part of it. Now, the basil, I've got 5 or 6 basil leaves here. I'm going to use about 3 of them now. And then I'm going to hold back about 3 for later, and you'll see why. Because that's going to give me the option to add a little bit of texture later on. Then I've got my vegetable bouillon cube. Unwrap it. It's better unwrapped. And then I'm going to use 2 ounces of water. Now, my water that I've got running from the faucet, it is already it's already warm. You don't have to use warm water when you're using a really high-powered blending appliance, like a Vitamix, a BlendTech, and there's some others out there as well. But those are the ones I have experience with. So with these, you run them long enough, the speed from the blade creates friction. So you don't have to put in warm water at all. You can start from room temperature, and this model specifically actually has a soup setting on it. You press start, let it go. From room temperature ingredients, you'll have hot soup ready to eat in 5 minutes. It'll turn itself off. For this recipe, just to speed it up a little bit, I'm going to use 2 cups of warm water. That's it. Pop the lid on, and since I've already put in warm water, I'm going to use the manual setting because it doesn't have to run quite as long. So I'm just going to start it, low speed, run it all the way up to high, let it go. Okay, news break. If you want to throw a clove of garlic in there, you can. Some people think it's a little bit too garlicky. Some people love the garlic. So I'm gonna leave that as an optional ingredient if you want to throw it in there. It tastes great without it. It tastes great with it. So it's up to you. Okay, that should be just right. Run it again, that's 2 or 3 minutes that I ran it. And that should be perfect to eat, okay? So let's see. Yeah, we got some steam built up there. So it is ready to go. All right. That's good. Now, here's the trick. We can serve that as is right now. It's ready to go. But I want to give it a little bit of texture and a little bit of color. So what I'm going to do is, before I serve it, all I'm going to do is drop a couple of those fresh basil leaves in there. And again, this would be the point in time where if you wanted to, you could take your dried basil and just sprinkle a little bit in there. Because all we're gonna do now is add some texture and color. So what I'm gonna do is pop the lid back on, and I'm gonna put it on low speed, turn the machine on, high, and then off. So it just takes a couple seconds and just chops up that basil. So as you eat it, you're gonna get those extra bites of extra basil-y flavor. So look at that. Beautiful. And so, there you have it. The finishing touches are going to be a little bit of this Romano cheese. And I saved one basil leaf for pretty soon. Now that is healthy, wholesome deliciousness right there. Perfect. Now, you can add a little bit of pepper. If you want a little bit of black pepper, have that. You can add that if you want. Sprinkle it right on top. You can put it in. If you want it saltier, make it saltier. Make it the way you want it. That's the beauty of doing these kind of things at home. You can make them the way you like them, but the point is we're getting healthy stuff in our bodies. We're giving it to our families, and honestly, it's more economical as well. You're gonna get gourmet results easy when you do it at home, do it yourself, and buy fresh ingredients. So go on out and blend some. It's good. Hey, if you like what you see, if you're enjoying getting something out of these recipes and you're trying these things out, do me a favor and hit subscribe on my YouTube channel. And that way you won't miss any of the new recipes that I put out. Thanks a bunch. Go blend some.